Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video on the channel. Today, we are going to move away from the topic of options trading and talk about a potentially more boring topic, but very, very interesting and a large opportunity right now to put your money to work, and that is Series I savings bonds. As of right now, you guys know that inflation is increasing in the US, and Series I savings bonds has a fixed and variable rate. The variable rate on these bonds is inflation. And right now, these Series I savings bonds are yielding 9.6%. That means that right now, if you were to put money into these Series I savings bonds, you would get 9.6% on your money every single year. Moving forward, if you think inflation continues to increase, that number will increase. If you think inflation moves lower, obviously that number will decline, but it never goes below zero. If you have money sitting on the sideline that you don't want to put into the market, that you don't want to put into real estate because of interest rates and high prices, this could be a potentially very successful place and very advantageous place to park some money for the foreseeable future. There's some things that I want to talk about on these I bonds. There's some cons, there's some pros. In today's video, I want to go through all of it, educate you on this opportunity. Just wanted to share it with you guys. I know this is not something that you may be interested in, but it is something that you should definitely consider if you have some money that is parked and maybe you want to go ahead and take advantage of the increasing inflation rates that we are seeing right now. So after today's video, if you did enjoy it, press that like button, subscribe to the channel. Let's go ahead and jump into it. All right, guys, so before we jump into the details, there's a few things that I want to go over to make sure that this is something that you should be interested in. And the first thing is, and the most important thing is do you have the cash that you can park away for an X amount of years? If you need the cash, if it's something that is important and you need to stay liquid for expenses, for your mortgage, etc., this is probably not something that you should be looking at because this does lock up your money for an extended period of time. If you are someone that has cash on the sidelines that you are trying to combat inflation with, this is something that I think is a great idea. So the key thing here is to make sure that you have that cash that you don't need for any emergency uses, that you don't need for any short-term problems or short-term expenses, and that you don't need that liquidity. If you don't need that liquidity and you foresee this cash being able to be locked away, then I like this opportunity for you, and I wanted to go ahead and share it with you now. So if we jump over to the screen, guys, you are going to be looking at the Treasury Direct website. These bonds are backed by the U.S. government. This is not a scam. This is not something that is fake. This is backed by the U.S. government, and this is something that is very popular for a long period of time. But now, with inflation starting to increase, which I will show you on a graph here, they are getting more and more interesting and more lucrative as of right now. So you guys can see, as of recently, I think just about a week ago, these percentages have spiked from 6% to 9.6%. Inflation has been increasing, and they go ahead and they change these rates, I think, every few months. So the next change is coming in October of 2022. So if we see inflation continue to increase, this 9.6% will increase with it, and you will yield that increase because this is a variable rate, meaning that it will change. If inflation moves lower, then you will not yield 9.6% anymore, but it is still a return on your money nonetheless. It will never go below zero. You will never lose money by parking your money in this Series I savings bond. So here's some questions that some people might have, right? How long do you have to hold it? Can you take your money out? Is there penalties for taking your money out, right? Those are your common questions, and you can go ahead and get answers right here. So an I bond earns interest monthly. So from the first day you buy it, it starts to accrue that interest. The interest is compounded semi-annually. So if we scroll down here, we can see that the rate is 4.8%. semi-annually. So for the year, you get 9.62%. Now, how long do we have to go ahead and hold these I bonds to go ahead and not receive a penalty? Well, you have to hold them for at least 12 months. And that is what goes back into the first guideline that I talked about is, do you need this cash over the next 12 months? If you don't foresee yourself needing this cash, then a holding for a year is really not that long of a time. And if you don't need it, then this is still a very viable option for you. Now, there is a very small penalty, which is really just a blip if you do remove your money before a 5-year period. And that is what you guys can see right here. So, however, if you cash the bond before it's 5 years, then you will lose 3 months of interest. So it's not a big amount of money because, you're not able to put a ton into this, which I will get into momentarily. Losing the 3 months of interest, if you really need that money before 5 years, is not that big of a deal. This is something that you could potentially buy now, and if you think inflation continues over the foreseeable future, you could just have this money parked here forever and potentially cash it out when it matures, which is a normal maturity date of 30 years, right? A bond typically matures over a 30-year period. That is how you get the maximum for your money if your money is parked here for 30 years long. So I want to go over quickly how much you can put into this iBond per year. You can put $10,000 electronically per year into this iBond and $5,000 through a paper application. So altogether, as your individual, you can put $15,000 into a Series I savings bond per year, and as of right now, you would yield 9.6% on that $15,000. Now, I want to get into how this actually works. How does the fixed rate versus the variable rate actually work here? And that is right here. You can see that the iBond combines both a fixed rate and an inflation rate. The inflation rate is the variable rate. And when I say variable rate, if you're not familiar, that means that it can change, right? A fixed rate is, let's say, a 30-year fixed mortgage, which I am locked in at 3.4%. That's what I pay for this house. It will not change ever. If you have a variable rate, and I had a variable rate mortgage, that means that as of the last 6 months, I would be under pressure because let's say my variable rate mortgage went from 2% to now up to 6%, right? So in this case, a variable rate could be both a pro and a con. If you are someone that foresees inflation to rise over the next, say, 1 to 2 to 3 years, if you think inflation just continues and continues, in that inflation rate, that variable rate, you will continue to see these iBonds yield a larger percent. Now, we all know, as of right now, the U.S. government is going to do everything in its power to lower the inflation rate. So is this something that is going to stay at 9.6%? I don't think so. I don't think you're going to see 9.6% on your iBond forever. That wouldn't be a great situation for the U.S., right? If iBonds continue to return 9.6% and inflation stays where it is, that is not ideal. But right now, you are getting 9.6%, and you could probably get that for a little bit over the next 12 months, maybe more, if these inflation rates stay increased. That's the game you play here, right? So you're sort of playing the inflation game. If you want to try to protect your money a little bit from inflation, this could be somewhere to park at least for a few years. If you think you don't want to have it anymore and it starts returning a small percent, you can take it out after a year. You would incur a 3-month penalty if you take it out before 5 years. But in my opinion, I am going to use this as a yearly contribution. It is tax deferred, which is another big plus. I'm going to go ahead and put $10,000 in this every single year. It's never going to go to zero, and it's always going to return me money. It is a safe place for my money. It will never lose money. And as of right now, 9.6% is pretty nice. And even if it drops to, let's say, 2 or 3 or 4%, that is still a pretty decent return on my money per year that I can't lose. A guaranteed 2, 3, 4, 9%. That is pretty attractive, in my opinion, if you are smart with your money and you have some cash sitting on the sideline. So guys, if I scroll down here, we can see how this sort of calculates. You can see that it is 4.8% semi-annually. You times that by 2 because semi is twice per year, and that is how you get to your 9.6%. If we scroll down, we can see these are the historical fixed rates on these iBonds. There is basically no fixed rate. There's basically nothing. If it just is fixed rate, you basically get nothing for your money. It's sitting at 0, maybe 0.1, something that you're not really going to get. You're not getting into this for the fixed rate. What you're getting into this for is the inflation rate, and that is right here. And you can see that over the last 3 years, pretty much, you have seen a small increase, and just in the last few months, you have seen that rocket higher on inflation, right now sitting at 4.8%. So the worst comes to worst, you're getting about 2% on your money here in I bonds. You have really not seen a number below 2%. You've seen negative here and negative here, but if you times this number by 2, you're typically getting just about 1 to 3% on your money, regardless of what inflation is doing. Even if everything goes back to normal, inflation decreases. You're really not seeing, since 2007, you're really not seeing a rate much below 1.5 to 3%. So if inflation is here to stay for the foreseeable future, you could get at minimum, I would say, 2 to 3%. But right now, you can see why it's attractive. You're getting 4.8 semi-annually, which is equal to 9.62%. Now, I want to go ahead and point one last thing out, which is important. Some of you guys may be worried about it. This is right here. If the inflation rate is so negative that it would pull the combined rate below 0, we don't let that happen. It stops at 0. It will never drop below 0. You will never have a negative return on these I bonds. You will always be accumulating interest and increasing your size on this I bond. And I think, guys, I really do believe that if you have that money that can be parked away, that you don't need to look at all the time, that you want a safe place to put money in, and it's not a savings account, returning 0.01%, I like this opportunity for you. If you're someone out there with $10K a year that can go ahead and be contributed to something like an I bond, which right now is very attractive, get that it's tax deferred. You can go ahead and return 9.62% right now. I can't promise that that's going to stay. As you guys know, the Federal Reserve is doing everything to combat that, and we'll talk about that in just a second, which is a nice segue into tomorrow's meeting, which is the Fed meeting, where we will most likely get a double rate hike. So that's I bonds. Go ahead, I'll put this link down below. Learn more about it before you put your money in. Do not take everything from me. It's not good for everyone's situation, but it is a good situation if you have that money that can be parked and you want a safe place to put it. Wanted to throw that out there for you guys, educate people that watch me on this channel, give you an idea of where money can be parked. Now, with that segue, let's go ahead and talk about the Fed tomorrow. We'll look at the charts, do some really quick analysis for you, and then we'll wrap up this video. All right, guys, so I quickly just wanted to show you the federal funds rate futures, which is the /ZQ on Thinkorswim, and this number is right now at 99.21. Now, what you guys can do with this /ZQ is you can do 100 minus the current price, and that is what the federal funds rate futures is pricing in for the federal funds rate by tomorrow's meeting. It's pricing in about a 0.8 rate. Now, right now, our rate is 0.25. And the only way to get anywhere close to that 0.8, 0.79 is to do a double rate hike tomorrow. We need to see a 0.5% increase tomorrow of the federal funds rate, and that gets us to what the federal funds futures are currently pricing in. So, if we see that double rate hike, I'm not so much expecting a drastic move on the market because that is what the market is currently pricing in. Now, we can use the /ZQ to see what it is pricing in the future, and we can see that. Let's go ahead and take, for example, December of 2022. As of right now, for December of 2022, the /ZQ is at 97.23. So if we go to the calculator and we do 100 minus 97.23, we can see that the market is currently pricing in a federal funds rate of 2.77%, which is right on target with what the feds want the Fed funds rate to be by the end of this year. So guys, you can use this /ZQ to see what the market is pricing in. If you were interested, as of right now, the market is pricing in a double rate hike tomorrow. We'll see what Jerome Powell goes ahead and says. We'll probably get some information about the balance sheet reduction, but right now, to stay on the topic of the inflation rate, to stay on the topic of the Fed funds rate, that is what the market is currently pricing in. Come hang out in the pre-market live stream tomorrow, where we will prepare for the morning and get ready for the Federal Reserve meeting, where we most likely will see that double rate hike. I hope to see you guys tomorrow, starting at 8 a.m. If you guys enjoyed today's video, if you learned something from it, make sure to press that like button, subscribe to the channel, comment down below what you think about these Series I savings bonds, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Peace.